welcome to the Snap UK, our Week 10 review of all things in the NFL. We're still under lockdown in the UK, so we're still meeting up by Skype, which is great and fun.
Shit.
It's
Still
rubbish.
Thoroughly depressing.
Oh, it's just shit, isn't it?
It's worse this time, I swear. I think
2 more weeks of this shit, haven't we?
Oh, God. Yeah, apparently. Anyway.
Apparently so. But anyway.
Luckily, you can have faith that it'll work because we're really well led.
Yeah. So should we go into the news? Everyone saw this.
Biden won.
Sorry?
Biden won.
Biden won. Well,
wow.
Biden won. But apparently someone's claiming that someone else won. But yeah, we've got to wait for that to finish, I guess. Or just drag him out.
I would love that to happen. I would love it.
So, do you want to see DeAndre Baker? The robbery charges against him have been dropped.
Mm-hmm.
And the lawyer against him has been arrested for soliciting bribes. So
really?
it's
a lawyer of alleged victims arrested over charges of extortion as well.
Yeah, William Dean wanted Baker to pay each of his clients $250,000, and in return, the police would then do anything you want. He of course was fired by the Giants because he had robbery charges against him. I imagine we'll see him back in the NFL sometime soon.
That, yeah. It sounds like it. There's been a few teams that have already been linked to him. The 49ers being one of them, the Chiefs being another. I know where I'd be going if I was DeAndre Baker.
Yep. Of course, he was a first-round pick, but he was. I remember him not being very well liked in New York, but I think there's talent there as well. He was playing in New York, so
you're probably going to get him. Yeah, you're probably going to get him on a minimum contract as well, because I appreciate that all the charges are dropped and none of that's going ahead, and thankful for that, obviously. But he's still going to have this hanging around his neck. It's still going to affect what he's going to get, especially on the first contract, and whether teams are willing to risk it. Because unfortunately, he still was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and there are many organisations that will just not pay any attention to him just for that factor. So whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but that's just the way it is. So it'd be interesting to see kind of where he does land, and what that contract looks like. But yeah, fair play to him. I think he deserves another shot, I reckon.
Yeah, it seems so. So let's go into the weekend action, and we're starting with the if not the game of the weekend, at least the moment of the weekend. It was the Bills 30, Cardinals 32. Cardinals take the lead with a late. Is it too harsh to call it a Hail Mary?
No, it was a Hail Mary, wasn't it? It was 78 yards or something.
Yeah, it was absolutely a Hail Mary.
It was brilliant as well. It still boggles the mind how I think if it was NBA, you'd say he dunked on them, or on those three players. It was just incredible athleticism.
The best thing about this whole thing, though, is surely that it made Chase just whine and whine like a little bitch all over again. Because we know every time he loses a game in fantasy, he wants to give away all his players and write off the year and talk about how the Raiders might make the playoffs. And that's the most I enjoyed about the whole thing, if I'm honest. As much as it was an amazing piece of play, it was just knowing that message was going to be there when I woke up on Monday morning from Chase.
Sure enough, it was.
Yeah. Oh, he's nothing if not predictable. Hi, Steve, if you're listening. I'm actually turned off by now. But yeah, an absolutely fantastic game, and I was just convinced the Bills had won that at the end. It was insane.
I think if we weren't talking about that last play and that DeAndre Hopkins catch, which was magnificent, it was a slight, you could say it was dodgy Bills pass defense, but whatever, it's brilliant. We'd be talking about the Stefan Diggs catch because that was equally good as well. And like that last drive that the Bills had and that pass to Diggs and the Diggs catch were as good as DeAndre Hopkins in terms of like a diving catch. It was brilliant to watch. And like everyone's completely forgetting that and focusing, perhaps rightly, on Hopkins' catch. But I think it shows, I read somewhere that only about 8% of Hail Marys are ever very successful. So, you've got less than a 1 in 10 chance of that happening. But when you look at the distance of the throw and the accuracy, I say that in loosest possible terms, for a quarterback that is that small, you don't expect someone that small to be able to throw the ball that far. And, he did well to escape the sack to start off with, reposition himself, didn't even get his feet right, and managed to launch the ball into the end zone for Hopkins to jump over everyone and make an unbelievable catch.
He is quite solid, though, isn't he? I don't think I'd ever really seen him, actually. And he is quite a unit. You can see why he does all right with like kind of, when he does run the ball. I suppose what I was quite excited about, really, is when you think about the changing of the guard across the league at quarterback, and what's Josh Allen, a third-year quarterback, and Kyler Murray's a second-year quarterback, and they're very different in terms of stature, but they're both quarterbacks that can run and can clearly throw the ball. Probably one is more accurate than the other, but that's going to be really interesting. I know they're in different conferences, but when you just think about the future and the changing of the guard from Rivers and Brady and a bashed up Drew Brees and all these quarterbacks that are going to leave the league. The Manning brothers have left. When you start looking at you start really looking at this talent that's starting to mature now, and you start going, wow, we're going to really enjoy watching NFL for the next few years if we're going to see games like that, whether it's in the regular season or in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you look at the year that Mahomes and Watson came out, and then you got Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson the following year. Then you got Kyler Murray the following year, and then even this year with all three of the first round quarterbacks, Burrows, Tua Tagovailoa, and who's the other one? Justin Herbert. God, mind escaped me. They're all really entertaining to watch at the moment. I think we're perhaps being a little bit spoiled for quarterbacks to watch. I think before that, maybe there was a little bit of a downturn in quality when you think of aside from Andrew Luck, you think of kind of James Winston, Mariota, Wentz, Goff. All right, they're average, Bortles. We seem to have hit almost like a stream of quality, entertaining quarterbacks because both the quarterbacks on Sunday, Allen and Kyler Murray, are really entertaining to watch. You could watch them play all day, and you can say that across the league where everyone who's got a young quarterback at the moment is playing in an entertaining brand of football, even if they're losing like the Bengals.
Well, not everyone. We'll come on to that.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot the Giants.
And it is really good because it does feel like a change of the guard because those guys are leaving. We've probably only got 7 or 8 more years of Brady. But yeah, Stefan Diggs. I think that when he made the catch, I was tweeting, but I was a bit behind, so I never got a chance to press send because I was just about to send a tweet going, is Stefan Diggs the best wide receiver in the league this year? And of course, the next thing I see is a 70-yard catch by DeAndre Hopkins. You're like, oh yeah, no, I forgot DeAndre Hopkins.
They almost said that on the commentary as well, didn't they? They said he's the best wide receiver in football this year. Yeah. And even at that point, I was like, that's a bit of a shout when DeAndre Hopkins is on the other sideline. And then he went to prove that maybe Hopkins got upset about that. I was like, I'll fucking show you.
Possibly, but for Buffalo, the Diggs trade's been cracking business, quite frankly, because he's been class.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's got almost an instant connection with Josh Allen. Given the fact that they've barely, there's no off season, they've barely had that time to kind of create that type of connection. They're playing really well together. We should speak about the other Bills quarterback that got a touchdown pass, Isaiah McKenzie, the trick play to Josh Allen. I thought that was one of the more entertaining pieces of football that we saw at the weekend, and not one that we're used to seeing from Buffalo, to be fair.
Yeah, just very fun. You know, I think that for a couple of weeks, Buffalo offensively have looked stodgy, and unfortunately, this week and the last couple of weeks they've looked like they're not stodgy anymore, but they've also lost a game. So, you know, it's just...
You're very quiet in the corner there, Stato Griff.
Yeah, I'm waiting for some stats to come out.
No, I've got nothing massive for you on this game apart from I can't. Yes, it was a great ending, but it was poor defending as opposed to a brilliant catch. It was how do you not defend that? So
I think I saw Gronk not defend one of those once.
Well, exactly. So why are we saying that this is? It was just like I say. That's why I called it a Hail Mary. So I didn't. You know, it was great. I thought more significantly was the difference in what was required in the trades for Hopkins and Diggs when they left their previous teams, respectively.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, but they are probably two of the best 3 or 4 receivers going, and I am on board with everything you say about the quarterback. So, you know, everybody knows I love Josh Allen. I think he's brilliant. It's taken me a little while to get on board with Kyler. I don't think it works in many other systems. So if you would struggle to plug him into just about any other team in the league, but it doesn't matter because that's the team he's playing for, and it's really good. You can't fail to be entertained. I would worry for either of these teams in a playoff situation against any quarterback who can pass for touchdowns because
Cardinals
they can't defend.
Cardinals are now top of the NFC West.
Yeah.
The NFC West. That's not like any division, is it? That is the NFC West. You know.
Yeah.
Like the Cardinals are top. You know, that's mad. You know, Seahawks were well ahead. You know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and you know their defense is just catching up with them. But that Cardinals team, you know, if they got on a roll, you know, it's like confidence in sport. That Cardinals team could do all sorts of crazy things this year. I think, like out of nowhere, literally.
They absolutely could. I think, you know, if they're going to win a game, it's going to be in a shootout. I think when it comes to playoff, if they're playing, let's say they're playing away, and it's the weather that we saw between Cleveland and the Texans, I think they're going to struggle because, you know, whilst Kenyon Drake had a decent game on Sunday, he's been bang average. And I think Kyler Murray, he can throw a good ball. Some of his accuracy isn't brilliant. Like, he didn't have a great game, actually, on Sunday. His rating wasn't that amazing. He threw one touchdown, 1 interception, had some yards on the ground, but compared to where he's been previous weeks, it was a bit of a meh sort of game from Murray. And you know, if it wasn't for the fact that he threw DeAndre Hopkins caught that catch, we'd probably be saying maybe kind of he was outdueled by a more classic type of quarterback in terms of Josh Allen. But you know, at the end of the day, they won the game, and we're not talking about that. But thankfully, we're not talking about, you know, is Josh Allen. Is there something wrong with Josh Allen? Because I don't think there is. Because equally, he had a bit of a meh game as well. But the Buffalo rushing attack is even worse. I think we said last week when they beat the Seahawks, like Pete Carroll came in with a plan to stop the Buffalo rushing attack. It's like they don't run the ball, and even, you know, they had 18 carries and 7 of those were Josh Allen, and Zach Moss and Devin Singletary are just they're not playing to the level that they need to be for this to be a balanced offense. I think too often it'll be left to Allen to kind of pull them through, and he's got the talent, but whether he's got the consistency to do it every week is probably another question.
No, well, fair enough. Well, let's leave that one there and stick in the AFC East in part because this Ravens 17. Patriots 23. Who saw this one coming?
Bill Belichick?
Possibly only him. But
I think Griff said it last week, where defenses are starting to find out about Lamar Jackson, and you know, there's no greater defensive mind in the game still than Bill Belichick. So if anyone's going to do it, it's him, and he did it. Fair play to him.
Yeah, I didn't see a lot of this game. I will admit, but the Ravens not having the season that a lot of people sort of hoped from them, and as well, like other than Lamar, the rushing offense has gone off a cliff. Like, Mark Ingram last year was, I don't know, I can't remember the term.
Top 10 fantasy back.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
This year, 5 carries, 5 yards.
Injuries haven't helped, but yeah, you're right. Like
he was doing everything from within the 5-yard line, though, wasn't he? Ingram.
Yeah.
He did, and that's why he was so good for fantasy, because they basically allowed midfield. They allowed all kinds of RPOs and let Lamar just do whatever he saw in front of him. And then as soon as he got in the red zone, they just gave it to the big trucks and said, "Get us into the end zone."
But do you not think the biggest problem the Ravens have got is there's no one elevating? So Lamar Jackson is being asked to do everything, and the wide receiving core basically is not enough to take the pressure off the running game. Willie Snead's a number 2 receiver. Marquise Brown is not what they hoped he would be. He just isn't.
No,
I don't know. Boyle and Mark Andrews are good tight ends, but they're not game-breaking tight ends. They haven't got enough around him, so they're going to run, and people like Belichick will game plan for we can stop that. Ultimately, the Patriots won because it was a poor weather game that played to the remaining strengths that the Patriots have. That's pretty much what it come down to. Cam Newton, first quarterback to run for 9 touchdowns in the first 8 games of his season, which is insane. And have you seen what his touchdown record is, by the way?
It's huge. It's like 60 odd, isn't it?
67 rushing touchdowns. The next best is Otto Graham with 44.
Yeah, I got it right, baby.
You did. I'm impressed.
Good job.
That's ludicrous as a number for rushing touchdowns. But pretty much that the Patriots go as Cam goes. On the weeks when he can rack up the scores on the ground and we don't have to rely on the passing game, he only had 118 passing yards. We'll be fine. But against good defences that can stack the box and force you to pass.
I don't know. I think Baltimore is a good defence. Like, you look at, they got Calais Campbell and Gotway on that defensive line. That's quality on that defensive line. I thought Damian Harris had a great game. I agree with you on Marquise Brown. I think my one on the side of caution on that is I don't think they're using him right. They're using him as like to stretch the field as a deep ball specialist, and like we've all said it. Lamar Jackson isn't an accurate quarterback. But accuracy isn't his thing, and he threw a couple of balls on Sunday night, where they were off target, but B, like Marquise Brown was covered. They were almost stupid throws. He was lucky that he didn't have more interceptions than the one he had. They asked him to throw 34 times. Like, if it's Lamar Jackson, you shouldn't be asking him to throw that many times. Did get 11 carries, 55 yards, but it's just, you're right. Well, the pass catch just didn't do enough.
They need to activate Des Bryant off the practice squad, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
And see what they've got. Put him in there. I think Mark Andrews is probably one of the top 5 or 6 tight ends in the league. But the problem is he plays injured all the time because there is nothing else out there. And last year he did really well, didn't he, Mark Andrews? Got like 10 touchdowns or something like that. He did really well. Mm-hmm. Had a great connection. But again, it's a bit like, right, okay, well, let's look where Mark Andrews is. Is he blocking or is he running? If he's blocking, then Lamar's going to be running, so let's move with that. And then if he's running, then we know where the target's going to go. First up, that's where Lamar's eyes are going first. So there's got to be more pieces. So yeah, I think their offense is definitely not balanced enough. And I think their defense is great, and I think their defense is probably top 10 and their offense is probably mid-table. But it's because it's getting quite stale. How do you freshen it up?
But Greg Roman has had this problem. Like when he was at the 49ers, like when Kaepernick suddenly came through, no one could keep up with Kaepernick and the 49ers offense. Like Kaepernick was ripping teams apart. And gradually people kept kind of people figured it out, and I think that the season that his last season in San Francisco with Harbaugh, it was like we went 8-8. I kind of feel, and again, Griff, you made this comment. I feel like this offense is being found out, and I don't know whether Greg Roman can't change it up at all, or what that is, but it's following quite a similar trend to what he did in San Francisco.
The Ravens are predictable. They're predictable, and you can be predictable if you're good enough. But if you're predictable against Belichick, he will find a way to beat you. That is the only thing that makes the Patriots competitive right now. Is we've lost a lot of pieces. We still have the best coach. So occasionally you'll get good things. If I'd have told you that Baltimore had won the time of possession in this game, you'd assume they'd win the game, because the only way the Patriots tend to win is to take the clock away from the other team. But they didn't need to do that this week. We even had more sacks than Baltimore, which is insane. So, it's a bad day for the Ravens. I think they're being found out very much. They're now way back in the AFC North race behind the Steelers.
But that's some division, isn't it, this year? Because Steelers are 9-0 for the first time in their history ever. And then what are the Browns like? 5-3?
No, the Browns are 6-3 as well. So they're level with the Browns now.
So that's mean you've got a Browns, team that are finally using some of the pieces they've got together. And that is, if you've got no easy wins in your division, it does take a toll. We see it in these difficult divisions, and that is one where you go. 3 teams should come out of that division, shouldn't they? Definitely
should do. Yeah, I could quite easily see it. I mean, the Ravens kind of next few games, they got the Titans and the Steelers, and then the Cowboys. And then the Browns after that. So out of those next 4, conceivably they could lose 3 if they're not playing at the top of the game, because Titans, Steelers, and Browns will give them a match. All right, Cowboys is going to be a bit of a cupcake, we reckon, but it's going to be interesting times for Baltimore.
While you're discussing, implications.
We're discussing.
Implications of the next few games. Do you think that this win just keeps the Patriots in the playoff picture, or not? Because I'd say, looking at their schedule, the best they can hope for is still 8-8. But they've now won at least one more game than I would have expected them to this season by upsetting the Ravens. They're at 4-5. They're the number 10 overall team. Bearing in mind 7 teams from each conference now make the playoffs. I'd say they're right in the hunt.
I would agree, because you look at the next few games. I think they're winning next week against the Texans. The Cardinals is going to be a difficult game, but again, Bill Belichick up against inexperienced quarterbacks. I'd back Bill Belichick rather than Kyler Murray on that one. Then they got the Chargers. Then they got the Rams, and Belichick's had Sean McVay's number a number of times. Then it's Dolphins, and that Dolphins match could be huge for the AFC East.
Well, we always lose that one, but
and then they got the Bills, and then they got a win against the Jets.
But if you'd have told me that it was more, or it was as likely that 3 teams would come out of the AFC East as it would be that 3 would come out of the AFC North at the start of the season, I never ever would have taken you on that bet. And now it is just as likely that scenario unfolds. Crazy, really.
It is, yeah. Anyway.
I don't think that will happen. I want to get that on record.
No, neither do I. But I'm just saying, it's now more possible than it probably should have been.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think Miami's resurgence has made that more possible.
Well, yeah. Well, let's move on to 49ers 13, Saints 27. Of course, the main story is, it's Jameis time as Breeze. Is all manner of banged up, really. He sort of, turned around to Peyton and said, I'm not feeling great. Turns out, broken ribs and a collapsed lung.
Yeah. Although they haven't put him on IR, which suggests they think they can get him back within 3 weeks, or he might be out for 3 weeks.
What it suggests is they don't think Jameis can be trusted, and Taysom Hill isn't a full-time quarterback. It doesn't suggest anything beyond that. They'll see what Jameis does. If Jameis wins games the way that Teddy did last year, they'll stick him on IR and save him make sure he's fit for the playoffs. But they don't know. They threw all sorts of short passes with Jameis. They didn't unleash him at all, because he's going to be a turnover machine again, because that's what he is.
If it's really bad, could we have seen the last of Drew Brees?
Potentially, yeah.
It's
Possibly.
possible, but I think they're a fairly safe bet for the playoffs, and I think he will be back for that. So it's unlikely.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I mean, you're right. It's a possibility if the injury's worse than they first thought. I don't see him coming back next year, whatever happens.
We should discuss the fact that they did win this game 27-13 over the Niners.
Yep.
And really, it comes down on both sides of the ball to injuries. Yes, Breeze getting injured is awful for him, and the team are going to struggle to adapt their game around Winston, but the Niners will keep losing as long as they cannot put their best 11 players on the field at any one time, and they can't.
I don't know who any of the players even are now anymore. Like, I haven't got any of their shirts. Like, all of the shirts I've got are now injured. Like, literally, there's nobody left. I've got nobody left in the wardrobe to even put on. I'm going to have to order a new shirt of somebody who I don't even fucking know who they are.
They'll probably get injured as well. Like, the latest one is Jermichael Hasties injured, the running back. So we had someone called Austin Walter had a carry for 3 yards. I don't know who that is. There's a few high spots here for the 49ers. Brandon Ayuk and Javon Kinlaw had 2 good games for rookies. And, there's light at the end of the tunnel. It's that we seem to have done pretty well with our first-round picks this year.
Do you not think Ayuk's not getting enough of a look in for one of the offensive rookies of the season? He's been amazing.
It's because he was injured for the first 4 or 5 weeks, so he's only just broke through in it.
He missed a few weeks. He's had 17 or more fantasy points in 3 consecutive weeks, and he is the only consistent weapon on the Niners offense.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
He's there, and you know what you're going to get every week.
When you look at
go on.
I was going to say, when you look at the quarterback he's playing with at the moment, it makes it even more impressive, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I'm a little bit disappointed in Jerick McKinnon for the money he's been getting paid to sit around for 2 years. I don't think you've found a way of replacing Mostert. I think all this injury shuffle has shown that Mostert is the best running back on the roster. And I think they hoped Jerick McKinnon would be, and he just isn't.
No, I think this was his make or break season, wasn't it? And okay, he's not been helped by injuries on the offensive line either. But he's probably not good enough because other players are making more yards on them with that same defensive line. Anyway, also just to say, okay, the hit Breeze being injured is never a good thing, but the hit on Breeze was not illegal. That was a ridiculous call.
Yeah, it was a poor call.
That was terrible. Like, he didn't even land on him. He tried to twist out of it, but he didn't have any choice. So, Javon Kinlaw should have 2.5 sacks, not 1.5 sacks in that game.
But to be fair, if somebody who is like 28 stone and 6'10" does anything to you, it probably will collapse your lung.
Oh, yeah, not denying that.
He's just huge. He's an absolute unit.
He is massive, but it was a fair hit. There's nothing else he could have done. I think most people are agreeing with that, apart from the referees at the time, obviously.
There was nothing else he could do. With regards to the Niners, we were just discussing the Patriots in 10th place in the AFC, still being in the playoff hunt. The Niners are 4-6. They're only 1 place further behind. They're 11th overall. What do we think looking at their fixtures? Any chance?
No, the division's just too hard. And I know the Seahawks have got their failings, but they can score points and we can't. So we can't beat the Seahawks. I reckon we can hold the Rams to a tight game and, nick a win. We'd be close, against the Cardinals. But we've got quite a hard schedule as well. So I just don't see it happening. I think
we've got a bye week next week, and then it's Rams, Bills, football team, Cowboys, Cardinals, Seahawks. So
conceivably, only 2 wins out of that. Really.
Yeah, exactly. If we get to 8-8, I think that's actually a massive result. But it could be 6-10. It could be 7-9. Somewhere between 8-8 and 6-10.
Well, fair enough. We'll stick with the NFC West here because it's Seahawks 16, Rams 23, and
again, I didn't see this coming. I just didn't think the Rams would be able to stop the Seahawks from scoring. But you can't write off a team that's got Aaron Donald destroying the middle of everybody's O-line, even to the point of upsetting Russell Wilson. I will say I've now reached the point where Russell Wilson's fallen out of the MVP race. I thought he was clinging on after 3 weeks of interceptions, but that's it. It's over for him now.
He's had 2 bad games. I think if he comes back and has another month that we saw previously,
I think he's out of it.
But too many other players have been too good. He was clinging on as like number 3 or 4 overall, and I think that was it. And it's a shame, but right now you could put at least 3 quarterbacks ahead of him, and probably a couple of running backs.
Definitely a couple of running backs and not getting big enough shot. We didn't even talk about Alvin Kamara in that last game, by the way. He had an awesome game. Just to touch on that.
He may or may not be the only reason I won my fantasy game this week. So big up Alvin Kamara, top scoring fantasy player this season.
It was pretty impressive. I think the reason why I said right at the start of the segment that I could see the Rams beating the Seahawks was because of the defense, because they've got in Aaron Donald someone who can pressure right up the middle and distract and disrupt Russell Wilson. But most importantly, they've got one of the few lockdown cornerbacks of the game at the moment who you can reliably put on the top receiver and know that receiver is not going to see any of the ball. And Jalen Ramsey had probably one of the best games I've seen a cornerback play. He restricted DK Metcalf to 2 targets only and no catches.
Yeah.
And that meant that they only had to focus. Like if you've got a cornerback that can do that. Sorry, he had 2 receptions, 28 yards. It was 2.
Yeah.
4 targets, 2 receptions. But if you can, that's nothing compared to what he has had. And if you can do that to one of the top receivers on your opposing team, then the rest of the team can figure out what to do with the other receiver. And Tyler Lockett had a bang average game. And the next best receiver was a guy called Freddie Swain, who didn't catch Freddie Swain. Not 3 touchdown.
3 touchdowns in one game.
Jeff Swain. No, his less productive maybe cousin, I don't know, Freddie Swain, I'm making that up. So, yeah, you've got you work in tandem between the up front with Aaron Donald just absolutely wreaking havoc, and Ramsey, who's able to take away your best threat, and that works for the Rams. And it's the reason I could see the Rams doing pretty well this year still. I'm still a big believer in them. I don't think the offense has been as good as it perhaps could be, but it's getting the job done.
Yeah, I think we don't always pay enough attention to divisional games. I think there's very rarely a game that can't go either way, unless you've got a completely awful team like the Cowboys, or the Browns were for a long time, or the Jets are at the moment. Unless you've got a team like that in your division, these teams know each other so well. They play in the same stadiums, home and away, against each other, for the last 30, 40, whatever years. So they understand what they're trying to do as a franchise. You have a coach like Pete Carroll in Seattle for 12 years or however long he's been there. And, there's been coaches that have probably been at the Rams for, a good number of years. They will understand what they are trying to achieve, what the ethos is. Sometimes players move around. The teams just know each other so well. Whereas when you go AFC versus NFC and you haven't played that team for maybe 4 years, you just don't know how that matchup's going to play out, do you? Whereas divisional is just always tight. I think you can take most divisional games with most middle-of-the-road teams and you just toss a coin. It could be a one-score game either way.
You mentioned the Jets, but you even look at it last week. They took the Patriots to the last kick of the game last week. So, yeah, absolutely makes sense that these games are always much, much tighter than they perhaps should be in cases.
Well, we'll stick with divisional games because it's the Bucks comeback. It's the Bucks 46, Panthers 23. I was at the start of this game. I was really enjoying watching Teddy just really take it to the Bucks defense, and then
12 for 12, 100 and something odd yards.
Yeah,
it was brilliant, and then he just disappeared. Basically, they just shut him down, and Brady doesn't lose back-to-back games. Certainly doesn't lose them badly. And say what you will about him, he has transferred a lot of that New England ability. Has gone with him. The confidence to just we'll just make it better next week, and it's kind of the Belichick way rubbing off on the Bucks. I really do believe it. So between that and Arians having the balls to bring in Antonio Brown and just continuing to throw the ball down the field, Ronald Jones playing well. They were always likely to be able to turn it around, but this is an impressive comeback after getting hammered, as you can see, I think.
He bounced back from a really early fumble really well, I thought, Ronald Jones.
Yeah.
With having like...
first drive, wasn't it?
Yeah, and having like Leonard Fournette just waiting to try and, play behind you, and like he came back and he was just awesome, wasn't he? Ronald Jones.
Yeah.
Like, he's in the
192 yards in the game.
top 5 yardage this year for running backs or something.
Yeah.
Ronald Jones got 600 plus yards. He's played very well this year after really disappointing last year. So, and maybe the pressure is helping him because there's definitely, because we've got Shady McCoy as well, who is just nowhere. Like, has anyone actually seen him go on the field yet?
He's on minus yards.
Yeah, he's not done a lot. He's just there as
he's going to get a ring for doing nothing potentially.
I'd take that.
So would I.
Wouldn't that be another ring? Was he on the Kansas?
He was at the Chiefs.
He was a healthy scratch in the Super Bowl, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I think with regards to the Panthers, look, we should celebrate the fact that they're playing well above their station, but that's 5 losses in a row. Teddy was injured, so it could be PJ Walker in the next game that they play. I think you might see the wheels come off a bit. I'm not sure why you'd expose Christian McCaffrey now you're out of the playoff picture. But it still bodes well for next season, and it's all about next season for them. So that's good. For the Bucks, it's all about now. What can you achieve now? And I don't see how you count them out. You can't tell me that if they get to the playoffs, you would say on any given week they couldn't win a game.
You're right. You can't count them out. But at the same time, they are still lacking a bit of consistency.
Oh, they're so fallible. But it's this swagger now that, whilst it may not have been earned by the team yet, they're still walking around with it like, we just think we can win. And I think that counts for so much when it comes to the playoffs.
Mm. Yeah, no, I would kind of agree with everything you say there. I think they are beatable. They've lost 3 games this year.
Yeah.
But when you look across the roster, it's you do struggle to find any weaknesses. Maybe at cornerback, they're a little bit prone, but they were always going to beat the Panthers. I think the Panthers have done really well this year. You're right. It's all about kind of next year for them and how they can kind of build experience in the defense, but also kind of continue the progression on the offense. Ronald Jones, you mentioned it. I heard he fumbled, and the first thought that went through my mind was, bugger it, I left Leonard Fournette on my bench, and he's now going to get a load of carries. And thankfully he didn't. So it was actually one of the few times I got a decision right.
Yeah, we both did well for a change this weekend. Ronald Jones, also the 4th player in NFL history with a rushing touchdown of 98 or more yards. That was ridiculous.
Derrick Henry's got 2 of them, isn't he?
He's got one of them.
He's got a 98 and a 99, hasn't he?
Yeah, I believe so. It was fantastic to see. I must admit, I was waiting for him to do a Daniel Jones and just fall over, but it didn't happen. He seemed to be able to get his legs one in front of the other for the whole length of the field. So,
witchcraft.
It's good. I haven't seen any more about Teddy's injury. I don't know the severity of that, but and Gronk, we should mention, is starting to play like Gronk.
Yeah, it was always going to take him a bit of time to get fit, though, wasn't it?
Rust off, but he was like running with players draped on him again, like he used to.
Yeah,
and that makes a massive difference to this offense because now people have actually got to cover him.
Yeah,
Teddy Bridgewater has had an MRI on an injured knee, and no damage has been revealed.
Yeah, that's good.
It was his other knee as well.
Yeah, it was.
It was the right knee. Well, yeah. So, but yeah. Well, hopefully we'll see him back. But
he's had a good season. I think if it wasn't the fact that it was his 2nd season back, you would be talking about him as a comeback player of the year because he has been really solid for the Panthers. I know they've got a losing record, but that's not on him.
It's that defense. That defense isn't what it was. You lose Keachley, and it's just
exactly
how do you replace that? How do you replace that hole?
They draft every draft pick this year for them was a defensive player, and that's going to take time to gel. And you're right, they haven't got leaders on that defense yet. They'll come with more experience, but you're right. You're losing Keachley, and losing Thomas Davis the year before as well. 2 massive losses to that defense.
And then McCaffrey for half of this season so far. New coach, you just see how it goes, don't you?
Yeah, I suppose you do.
Yeah, he's very keen to gamble on 4th downs, isn't he, Matt Wall? He's a riverboat.
He's running the analytics. You might as well. There's a lot of situations where it pays off. It's working for him.
No, cool. Anyway, let's move on to Chargers 21, Dolphins 29. Which is bloody obvious, wasn't it? That was going to happen. Yeah.
I saw a tweet yesterday, perhaps. There are 3 teams that have lost, or what was it? 3 teams that haven't lost a game by more than a touchdown this year. The Steelers, the Chiefs, and the Chargers. It's
the same as we said last week, right? There isn't much to say because we covered it. The coaching is terrible. They cannot win games because of the coaching. The players are playing out of their skin. The coaching is letting them down. It's the opposite to the Patriots, basically, where you've got a really good coach coaching average players. Here, I think you've got 4 or 5 really good players on either side of the ball and really below average coaching. The Dolphins deserve credit, but they let someone called Savlon run all over them, you know what I mean?
Salvin Ahmed.
Whatever. Some guy who previously had 2 carries for like -8 yards come and peed all over you for 80-odd yards and a touchdown. It's not good. It's poor, in fact. Didn't they release Jordan Howard as well, the Dolphins?
They did.
Following Savlon's great game. They just binned him off.
The only thing I think we probably should talk about is how good this Miami defense is getting.
Yeah.
Because this
really
Miami
good.
defense is really good, and I really do think that they're turning out to be one of the best defenses out there. They score, and when they turn the ball over, they score points. Their special teams is quite good as well. So I think that Dolphins team is becoming a far better coached team. Who was the coach there? I can't remember.
Brian
Flores.
The last 2 years,
Amazing.
he has done an amazing job. The last 2 years.
Shall I tell you how much of an amazing job he's done? The Dolphins have scored 21 or more points in 8 consecutive games of a single season for the first time since '84. That's 21 points is not a lot. That's 3 touchdowns. That's insane. How do you go for 36 years and not do that over an 8-game span?
Yeah. And I think, you're right. They've got absolutely awesome defense. The defense scores points as well. I think, is that 3 games in a row that defense has now scored points? They're stealing points that way. And, Tagovailoa he doesn't have to play brilliantly to kind of keep up. He's doing enough. I think he's playing. He's having solid games. He's not giving the ball away.
Extremely maturely. I think that's the kindest way of putting it. They're not asking him to do a huge amount. But he's doing what he's being asked to do without turning the ball over.
Yeah, I mean that's the most important
thing. How much would most teams who take on new quarterbacks beg for their players to do that?
I think the thing is, when your defense gets you ahead, it's a bit like the Bears, isn't it? The Bears can win with Trubisky or Foles if your defense gets you 10 points up. With a field goal from a turnover and a touchdown from a turnover, you can win with a new quarterback, 170 yards almost, 15 out of 25, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. You can
didn't
call
take
that
any
average,
sacks either.
But
I'm not saying average. I'm saying it's very mature. It's not like if you look at some of Herbert's numbers or Burrow's numbers this season, they don't stack up, but he's winning games. He's winning more games than Herbert.
Yeah, exactly. Their 400 yards don't mean shit, does it? If you don't win the game.
Both of them now.
Yeah, of course.
I think it probably
together,
didn't help the Chargers' cause that on their very first play of the game, they had a blocked punt, and the Dolphins started on the Chargers' 1-yard line or something.
But that's what we're saying. It comes down. It's not just defense and offense. It comes down to special teams as well. There's a couple of teams this week. Sorry.
Well, Jim, we did get away from the fact that the Niners muffed 2 punts in your defeat.
Yeah, exactly. So
one of them was hilarious because the guy was shouting no, 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 and it bounced and hit the other player that was running in.
I think I said it the other week where I can't watch the 49ers receive a punt since that NFC Championship game against New York Giants in about 2011. And that's still true to this day. It seems.
I can't watch the Niners full stop this season. It's just frustrating, depressing.
Yeah.
Well, before we head to the break, Broncos 12, Raiders 37. So I don't think it's going to be a lot to say here. We're getting to the point of the season where a lot of these teams, we know the Broncos aren't very good.
Mm-hmm.
The Raiders...
They're just the hottest, streakiest team. Hot and cold, aren't they, the Raiders? Like, some weeks they look great. They get Josh Jacobs running. You know, they do some good stuff. Other weeks, I think they look terrible still. And I know I get, mocked for putting them like 18th or whatever in my power rankings. Not that I listened last week and, turned up bitter this week or anything. But, I see such inconsistency in that team that it just frustrates me to the point. And like with that Dick going knock on wood all the time, and they just wind me up. I mark them down sometimes just because of that, just because I can just hear more. They're going, good game, knock on wood, and I just go, no, that's -5 places. That just pissed me right off.
I think you are right, aren't you? There are certain teams that you kind of want to see lose just because you hate that some of the personalities behind them. Yeah, Patriots for one of them. No one really likes Bill Belichick, but we all respect him. John Gruden, I think, is another one. No one really likes him, and probably hasn't quite earned that level of respect yet. But at the end of the day, they've won 3 games on the bounce. Okay, 2 of them against the Chargers and the Broncos, and then they beat the Browns in a pretty dire game in Cleveland. They're also the only team, I think, that have beaten the Chiefs so far this year, and they're playing the Chiefs next week as well. It could be a division decider, because if they carry on that kind of streak of form and they get to 7-3 and the Chiefs move down to 8-2, there's a game in it, and Vegas have got that wild card of winning both division games, so they will top if they finish level. So I'm with you on this one, Gary. I don't like seeing the Raiders win, but you have to kind of respect the fact that they are winning games at the moment, and it's quite annoying. It's all down to Josh Jacobs. Derek Carr's having a solid season. I think he's doing what Tua's doing in Miami. He's being sensible with the ball. He's not making massive risks. He's not throwing interceptions, but he's also not doing anything particularly spectacular this year.
Well, I've got nothing to add, so let's go to the break.
That's all I've got to say about that.
We'll go to the break and we'll come back and we'll go through the rest of the games and then do our power rankings for running backs. Welcome back to part 2 of the Snap UK, and we're going to start with Thursday night's game. Colts 34, Titans 17.
Called it.
Well done.
Is that it? That's the analysis.
That's the analysis.
And it's a lie.
A massive fucking lie. I definitely thought this was going the other way, and I may have told Paulie it was ridiculous for picking the Colts, but never mind. Whatever.
Yeah, the Colts were... Naeem Hines has had 2 brilliant games recently. And he just seems to score the same touchdown over and over again. He takes a little slant and then dives into the corner. And,
Is he the one that does the somersaults afterwards?
He also does the somersault,
Yeah.
He's basically been a punt returner for a few years. And
well, they need someone to show up, don't they? Because Jonathan Taylor just seems to be getting worse and worse and worse of each week. And it's getting to that point in the season where I have to consider benching him on my team.
It's all over for Jonathan Taylor this year, I think.
It's not looking good, is it?
No, but don't give up, because look at Ronald Jones, for instance.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have him in a dynasty league, so
no. Stephen Gostkowski for the Titans missed his 9th field goal this season. You can see where this is going. This is like last game of the season to get into the playoffs. They need a win. They're 2 points down in the last few seconds, and he shanked the field goal. It's coming. It feels like they're waiting too long to get rid of this guy. And I'm not saying he's not one of the okay kickers in the league, but he's just not what he was. It's over. You can see why the Patriots were like, I don't think we're re-signing you on that massive contract because we don't think the hit is okay. And it may not be. He just keeps shanking them wide.
Yeah, he may just be bad now.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought in the last 5 games, I think Philip Rivers has quietly gone about his business. I don't think he started brilliantly in Indianapolis, but the last 5 games, 127 completions of 192. That's 66% completion rate. 1,400 yards, 7 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Like, you're always going to get interceptions with Philip Rivers, but I think he's quietly becoming a solid quarterback for them again.
Become a Hall of Fame quarterback is what you're saying.
I think he's loudly became a Hall of Fame quarterback over the last X amount of years.
Only 2 active quarterbacks have more 300-yard passing games than Philip Rivers. Who do you think?
Breeze?
Yep.
Roethlisberger?
No.
Russell Wilson?
No.
It's
Brady?
not Brady, is it?
Tom Brady. So only the 2 players who played in the league longer than him.
Well, Roethlisberger's been in the same year.
But you can prove anything with stats, can't you? Joe Flacco's thrown more touchdowns or whatever than Joe Montana, but he's still not as good.
Just saying, like, he's certainly putting the numbers up that, maybe like to Jim's point, he's been through rough patches, but when they're balanced and they have a running back to take the pressure off him, they win games.
If you let Jameis play for as long and as many games as Rivers, then he will also have as many yards as Rivers, but will have even more interceptions. Would you put him in the Hall of Fame?
Oh, God,
no, because he's throwing 30 interceptions a season. Probably not. But Anyway, we talk about this too long. We talked about a rookie running back who's not doing well for the Colts, but rookie wide receiver who's also quietly improving week on week is Michael Pittman Jr. He had 7 receptions, 101 yards. Didn't have a touchdown this week, but he's slowly, in a wide receiver room that's just full of pretty much no names, he's slowly becoming a bit of a name in Indianapolis. I liked him coming out of college, and I think playing with a quarterback like Philip Rivers, who is pretty accurate, I think he could get even better this year. I think he's now, we talked about Brandon Ayuk for the 49ers. He's starting to become into that conversation about one of the rookies of the year, if you ask me.
Yeah, very much so. Very much sort of under the radar as well.
I still think the cornerstone of this victory, though, really was just stopping that Derrick Henry run again.
Yeah,
a few teams have really started to focus on that now, and when you look at the D line at the Colts, it's impressive, isn't it? And if they've got some cap space as well. Next year, if they make the right moves, that Colts team could be very involved in the end of season playoff race for a number of years now. They've got to work out how many years they can keep Rivers and how they move on from Rivers. But if they can try and manoeuvre that interesting piece of work, they could be strong for 4 or 5 years.
Can you imagine what this Colts team would have done with this O-line and Andrew Luck?
Yeah.
They would have won everything.
They would have won the lot.
Yeah.
And it shows you why teams, when they take on their star franchise quarterback, need to then address the O-line immediately. You cannot wait, because by the time you sort it, look at Jets or Bengals, by the time you sort it, it's over. That player's done. They're beaten to death. Look at David Carr years ago with the Texans. He was not a bad player, but they never built an O-line. He was averaging 50-odd sacks a season he was taking. His career lasted 5 years.
Yeah.
And it shows you what they may have wasted in Andrew Luck. Just highlights it a little more. Don't mean to put a negative spin on what is a really good run from the Colts. I'm just saying, we know Philip Rivers is one of the weaker parts of their team, whereas Andrew Luck in this team would be amazing.
Go and get Deshaun Watson, whatever it costs.
Bill O'Brien's not there anymore, so it probably costs a normal amount of draft picks rather than a packet of crisps and someone a 6th round pick.
Yeah, just send them T.Y. Hilton. Fair enough.
Yeah, exactly. That'd probably do it if Bill O'Brien was there.
Well, okay, so Bengals 10, Steelers 36. Not really much to say here. The Bengals aren't great. The Steelers are.
Oh.
Yeah.
We've talked on other weeks about giving new coaches or coaches that have moved more time. Where do you start to draw the line with Zach Taylor?
I'd give him another season.
Well, another season on top of this, so he gets 3.
Okay, they're not winning games. We know that, but you can see there is progression for this Bengals team versus last year, right? right off what happened last week. They're playing a team who were 7-0 and then 8-0 and they're now 9-0. You can't judge the Bengals against playing the best team in the division and the best team in the NFL at the moment based on their record. But we are seeing like progression from how they play. Like they're not being absolutely destroyed in every single game. Joe Burrow is playing really well. I would fully expect him to probably be Rookie of the Year. And they've even got like T. Higgins is replacing AJ Green as like the number one receiver. I think they've got a good receiving core. The only thing, and to your point in the last game, they need to fix the O-line because even for a good defense, the defense got to Burrows 9 times, and they need to fix the defense, and they've got an opportunity to do that. I think if the Bengals get to 8-8 next year, I think that's the result. I think that's where they need to be thinking about getting to. And let's face it, they're probably next to the NFC West. They probably play in the toughest division in football.
Yeah,
I think it's really important that coaches are allowed to build over time as well, isn't it? Because the whole way that the NFL works is that if you come last, you get one pick. You get one pick at number one, don't you? It's not like you get like 5 of the top 20 players coming out of college. The team that comes first still gets the 32nd best player that's coming out of college. So it's not about like leveling up the playing field in one swift movement, is it? You can't go from last to first in the NFL, and you can't just do it. You've got all sorts of ways of doing it. You can go and get veterans, etc., etc. But I think there's not this massive option of just moving coaches, and coaches have very specific schemes. They might play different sets of defense. They might believe in a run game. They might believe in a play-action game. You can't just then pick up all those pieces and just throw them away all the time. You've got to allow a lifespan of a coach for them to, and a lot of the time it will be 3 to 5 years to allow those player contracts to move on. And then you get to another point where you go, right, it's decision time again. Are we going to pay people again, or are we going to rip it up and change it and try something different? So I think you've got to allow coaches 3 to 5 years, unless they're completely awful. The Lions are doing better, and 18 months ago, I certainly was saying Matt Patricia should never be allowed to coach a football team ever again. But they are improving.
I think that's fair, and that's all right. My end point of this was Zach Taylor's record currently is only 1 game better than Hugh Jackson was in the same time frame.
Then who was, sorry?
Hugh Jackson.
Yeah, but he didn't even talk like a head coach, did he? He didn't even, he said, "Oh, if I win a game, I'm going to go and jump in the fucking lake." He was just a joke.
The comparison to the last coach, and I think it's a fair thing to say, because
I think it's a fair point.
I don't think the team now is any more talented than it was at times under Hugh Jackson.
I think it's a fair point. What I will say is, and again, there's been progression from year 1 to year 2. I think there's been clear progression in the quality of play, and they've got a rookie quarterback in place who is probably playing above his years at the moment. We talked about Tua playing very mature football.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow is playing very mature football as well, behind an offensive line that's just getting destroyed every week. They fix that in the draft, and they bring in another couple of defensive pieces. I think the Bengals. I think all the teams in the AFC West, in the AFC North, like it is in the NFC West, could be challenging next year.
I think if you had a lot more noise coming out of your star quarterback that they were frustrated and not happy, there'd be a lot more pressure. But that isn't the case, is it? So,
no.
He's clearly engaged with what is trying to be achieved. So you let that run out.
Sure.
Okay, well, let's move on to Jaguars 20, Packers 24. A closer game than it should have been, I guess.
We said last week and the week before that the Steelers played down poor opposition. The Packers had their game this season where they played down to a poor opposition. I think it helps there's not much film on Luton. And he did some okay things. He had the opportunity to step up. He had 2 plays at the end where he could have stepped up and delivered a bomb just to try and win it, and actually stepped into sack both times. That's the problem. He's not that good, but there is no real drop off between him and Minshew. They're different, but there's no drop off. Look, the Jags have got nothing. They've got a running back.
I think they've got a couple of receivers who are decent enough. Like I think DJ Shark is good. I think Keenan Cole is good as well. Yeah.
How many are they a number one receiver? Either of those. On how many other teams are they a number one receiver?
And without that punt return, it would have been nowhere near as close this game.
No, exactly. Which, by the way, was. But I like Shark for a bit, but I just don't think on probably 27 other teams he's number one receiver. He just looks good because he gets all the volume.
Fair point, I guess.
Yeah, it was an off day for the Packers.
Still a thing, by the way.
Yeah, Tyler Eifert is still a thing.
Yeah,
still in the league, but he's still there. I don't think there's a lot beyond the fact that if the Packers can win ugly like this, you've got to be terrified of playing them in the postseason.
Yeah, look, I thought the Jags defense played well at times. If I'm honest, they've made a few more plays at key times than they have done for a few weeks, and I think Valdez-Scantling had a great game again. But apart from that, there isn't that much there really. I know Rodgers likes the tight end, but they are still missing. If they could get another wide receiver in there, a real quality wide receiver, if they'd have picked up AB, if they'd have taken a risk on Antonio Brown, that Packers team would look a lot better in terms of whether they're a candidate for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they could have got Will Fuller as well. They just couldn't agree on a price for him. So yeah. I agree. They're still a quality number 2 wide receiver away from being absolutely kind of
when they had Jordy
unbeatable.
Nelson and Randall Cobb, at the time, they were quality at that point, weren't they? You just didn't know where he, you knew he was going to go Jordy Nelson, then over the top to Cobb, And these days he just doesn't have that. He's missing one or two pieces, I think.
Yeah, completely agree.
Okay, well let's go on to the speed round. The games that there's just nothing there. So Eagles 17.
All the NFC East.
Yeah. Eagles 17, Giants 27.
Giants defense is okay.
Yeah, I said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I text that to our group and then I immediately regretted texting it after my performance the week before or last week and expected the Giants defense to completely implode, but it didn't. It held on. And it held the Philadelphia Eagles. They had no third down conversions throughout the whole game, which was pretty impressive. I think the other thing to mention, me and Griff were chatting about it earlier, Carson Wentz is now the most hit quarterback in the league. He's got no offensive line in front of him. You've got to feel sorry for him just because he's taking all those hits, and he's barely got anyone to pass the ball to.
Pretty amazing then with that O-line that Miles Sanders is averaging 6 yards a carry this season.
He's doing really well, yeah.
Because obviously no one really wanted him in our fantasy draft, and then he was injured at the start of the season.
Yeah, he's got injury question marks, isn't he?
He has really started to show why people were raving about him, last season in these last 3 or 4 games. It's been quite interesting to watch that. So we'll see how that helps take the pressure off Wentz moving forward.
Yeah. Daniel Jones didn't trip himself up this time either. Apparently,
haven't turned it over consecutive games for the first time.
I know.
Fine. Daniel Jones played fine. Carson Wentz must be the most regressed quarterback this season, regardless of the overall.
Yeah. Well, he's never been the same since the Super Bowl year. He wasn't that good last year.
No, he really wasn't. But he's just going backwards. And I don't know whether it's Doug Pederson or Carson Wentz or both, but he's going backwards regardless of what's going on around him. I know that the supporting cast is up and down. But
up and down? It's mainly down. You are right. I agree with you.
Like you say, he does have a running back.
Yeah.
I just think he looks terrible. 12 interceptions, 12 touchdowns. His completion percentage is below 60%. I don't know. He just doesn't look like a franchise quarterback.
They've had 22 starters on that offensive team. That's the most in the league.
Christ.
Vikings 19, Bears 13.
Oh, that's another one I called. Definitely called. Oh, no. I thought Kirk Cousins would screw it up on Monday nights, but
Well, it's traditional that he does screw up in prime time.
I think Bears would have won if Nick Foles hadn't got broken in half on the last play. If I'm honest. You
I think
that some Bears fans, are relieved to be seeing Nick Foles playing because at least he can make decisions. I think they're wrong. I think this team looks worse without Trubisky's running.
I think that'd be fair if Trubisky did run the ball. Like, he's not been doing that the last 2 seasons. But saying that, Nick Foles didn't have a good game. He overthrew a couple of players in big situations. And then, you're right, he got broken in half towards the end of the game.
My issue with Foles is his limitations are so known and are so clear. I'm just not, you know what you are going to get, and he is probably slightly more accurate than Trubisky, very slightly. But then after that, his limitations. He's not the quickest. He can move around with a bit of play action. But he's not exactly dynamic, is he? And I've always wondered about his leadership qualities as well. I don't know. I just wonder.
That I don't question that. I think he's a great leader. I just don't think he's a great quarterback. He's a great leader. He's an average quarterback.
Bang average quarterback.
Right now, to elevate this offense, you need a great quarterback.
But
he's
a £20 million a year, $20 million a year quarterback as well.
That's actually not that much now for a starting quarterback. I know it's ludicrous money to you and I, anyone getting paid that much money, but $20 million a year for a starting quarterback isn't that much. Sorry,
I'm sure Gary gets paid that much money.
Yeah, probably. Their running game's still terrible. They had 17 carries, 41 yards, 2.5 yards per carry. That's just abysmal.
They had no Montgomery this week either, and he hasn't been great.
But then on the flip side, the defense is really good. Like Dalvin Cook had 96 yards, which seems a lot, but he had 30 carries. He averaged 3.2 yards a carry. That's not Dalvin Cook's numbers.
Averaging over 100 yards a game.
Yeah. So their
well.
defense is still good. It's just that their offense is just terrible. Like, it's the opposite of what the Seahawks are. The complete opposite.
Yeah.
And worse. Because I'm sure a few weeks ago we said, let's look at this again and see if they're 5-5. And now they're 5-5. Now they're 5-5.
So. They're done. The Vikings are in the ascendancy. They're a game back behind the Bears, but these two teams
got a game in hand as well.
Yeah. They're going in opposite directions.
Yeah.
Football team 27, Lions 30.
Do you know what? I'm glad that this is in the speed round because we should be talking about Alex Smith actually having the game of his career and still losing.
Brilliant,
I told you last week, this team gets better by subtraction. He made them look like a viable team against a middle-of-the-road opposition, I grant you. But that's great for Washington football team, and they may well be playing Alex Smith next year as well because they're not guaranteed to get one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks coming out if they keep playing like this. So I think I don't know what else they're supposed to do. You would have said they should win this game, but they nearly did.
Well, I think, if Smith stays fit till the end of the season, then, his doctor should be comeback player of the year, his surgeon, because it's just, that is an amazing piece of work to be able to reconstruct, somebody's leg to be able to go out and play professional American football and get hit very hard, by very big people. And, he was always a very consistent player, wasn't he? Whether it be at the Niners, or the Chiefs or the Skins, the football team, whichever one it may have been, we know what he can do. We know he can throw for, 300 yards by throwing it, 15 yards 20 times a game. We know what Alex Smith can do. That's not a surprise to anybody.
Just a surprise.
Interesting. Yeah, it is. But, I can't remember the tight end's name, but he looks quite good.
Logan Thomas.
Logan Thomas.
Yeah. And obviously then you've got Scary Terry as well. So, he's got some people to throw the ball to. If that O-line can give him a little bit of time, then I think they will win some games towards the end of the season if they can keep him fit.
Yeah, I like the running backs as well. Gibson and McKissick. It's a great one too. I think they're just getting better every week. Quickly before you move on from this one, first time the Lions have scored 20 points in each of their first 9 games to start a season since 1954. So
yeah, and Gary touched on it earlier. They're getting better. We're starting to see the players start to perform. Yeah, they've got injuries still. Like they're missing Golladay, their best wide receiver, but other players are stepping up. Marvin Jones had a good game. DeAndre Swift has gone from a rookie running back who was derided for dropping the ball once or twice. He's now been named the starting running back. He had a great game.
Imagine if you bigged him up. Imagine if you bigged him up, Jim, and then you dropped him in fantasy after a couple of weeks. Imagine if you did that.
Who did that?
In all fairness, I'd have dropped him after what he did to you as well. Matt Prater's 59-yard kick was the longest game-winning kick in life. It was a beautiful kick, and they shouldn't have been in field goal range. But Chase Young with the penalty against Matt Stafford. The Lions back games, I think, by being lucky. They won on the Gurley going in for a touchdown, and then they've won on this. Okay, like the Lions are playing better, but I learned more about football teams than I learned about Lions this week, and I learned that they're going to.
And finally, that leaves us Texans 7, Browns 10.
What a dump of a game! The weather before the game killed it. The weather during the game killed it, and I think the only thing about this is it shows you the massive limitations of the Texans. Just you've got to be scoring more points than that on any given day. With Deshaun Watson as your quarterback, there's just not enough of an excuse to be out to lose 10-7 against this Browns team. It's not good.
No, and there's rumours that Romeo Crennel is being favoured for a permanent head coaching job at the Texans. And if that happens,
so short-sighted.
Yeah, like you've got one of the best young quarterbacks in the league. You sign him up to a long-term contract. Bring in a GM and a head coach that can build around him, because we've said a lot of quarterbacks are coming out of the college game and they're performing well, but it's still hard to find a good quality quarterback and then keep them. They've got that in Watson. Nick Chubb running out, had his first game back after a few weeks off. Had a great game, I thought, and then ran out of bounds when he could have scored a touchdown to make it 17-7. Well, 16-7.
Life is always easier when you can use your Chubb. That is what we learned this weekend.
Yeah. Bit of conjecture about he was doing the right thing running out of bounds. They've only gone 10 points up. It's not the same as the Gurley situation. Sorry?
Yeah, they'd have had to have scored a touchdown and get an onside kick and get a field goal.
Exactly. Just a draw. It's like, yeah, all right. I see, you guarantee the win versus pretty likely to win. I don't see what all the fanfare is about. You should have scored the touchdown.
Okay, well, that brings us up to our running back power rankings. So,
not easy for you to say, is it, John?
It really is.
Running back power ranking. Yeah. I can see where you get a bit of a tongue twister.
Who gets the guy with the rotic R something to say like that? That's terrible.
No, it's awful. But, okay, so all 5 of us have sent in their team. They're sent in their power rankings. Our top 10.
You should say what it's ranked against. Like, is it like all time? Is it this season?
Basically it's active running backs. So it's not on this season, but it's active running backs who would our top 10 be. So even if they're injured this year, but they're still active, we counted them because of course there's so many injured this year.
I worked on the basis that if I was taking over a franchise tomorrow, this would be who I wanted to start my team.
That's how I went on it as well. So, do you want to guess how many different names were picked up?
15.
Close. 14.
Oh.
Yeah. So, there were 4. So, I've given them points for each time they've got position. So, first gets 10. Down to 10th gets 1, which means that there are 4 people.
Basically, like Eurovision, John. Yeah, just for our listeners. Yeah.
The scoring process is just going to be just as boring. But so there are 4 players who don't make the top 10. Anyone want to guess any of those 4 players?
Kareem Hunt.
So,
Joe Mixon.
No, Mixon is 11th place. He got picked by two people.
Really?
Yeah. In ninth by Paul and 10th by Jim. We had Raheem Mostert got the pick.
I picked him. Yeah.
Todd Gurley got one pick.
I nearly picked Gurley.
By me.
I didn't.
And Austin Eckler.
Yeah.
I picked him at 9th.
He would have been my 11th.
He was my number 11. Yeah. Okay.
So in 10th, we've got Kareem Hunt, who was picked by two people, but he was picked in a higher place than Joe Mixon. So
technically, I didn't pick him, John, but I put him in after I was told I couldn't have Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
Hence it being running back competition.
Yeah.
I would take Lamar Jackson. If I had a better quarterback, I would just play him at running back.
Yeah.
I'd have Kyler Murray over Lamar Jackson.
Okay. So in 9th place, and we'll take some guesses.
Aaron Jones.
Zeke Elliott.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Only picked by 3 people, 15 points. I didn't pick him.
His numbers are still good in a bad team.
And Mike didn't pick him either.
He's having a bad year, but you'd still take him.
He's got a bad attitude, and Tony Pollard is doing just as well behind that O-line as he is.
His numbers are still in the top 10 this year in a bad year. He is definitely he is a quality running back.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but his attitude stinks.
Yeah. He'd have been... I mean, I still picked Eckler and Gurley ahead of him. That's what I think of him. I just don't think... the next one up, Nick Chubb with 18 points. Basically, everyone above here is picked by everyone.
All right.
So Nick Chubb. The next one is Aaron Jones with 21 points. Josh Jacobs at 23. Saquon at 24. And then there's a big jump. Derrick Henry with 38.
Ooh.
Okay, this one gets the top 3. So this is where
McCaffrey, Cook, Henry.
Yeah,
No,
in what order?
Obviously.
That order.
It'll be McCaffrey, Kamara, Cook.
I'm going to go with my orders: Kamara, McCaffrey, Cook.
So McCaffrey was first in everyone but Jim.
Really?
In your place.
Alvin Kamara was second.
I hold the biggest grudge against Alvin Kamara. How did I put him
I was
in
so surprised when I saw you picked him first.
I put him 7th. I put Kamara 7th because of his
Really?
season last year.
I'm surprised about the drop off between the top 3 and Saquon. Like Saquon on his day is brilliant.
Yeah, but Saquon doesn't stay on the field.
I had him 9th. Yeah, because of his.
You say that he still played more games. He started more games than Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
I had Chubb 8th.
and more
I had
yards.
Chubb 8th.
I think I
had
picked
Chubb.
back at 4 or 5. I'm just saying, you don't know. You just don't know. But yeah, so are you saying I was right, John, with my top 3, basically?
Yeah.
Because
and so was I. But yeah,
the snapshot clearly this season, Cook is far and away the best running back this season.
Oh yeah, this season. If it was this season,
I still put Derrick Henry second. I did.
He's
been
great
solid.
He's
not going to get
injured.
The same as everyone else is going to get injured.
Yeah.
No.
You watch him break both legs next week. Now Gary said that.
No, it'll kill my fantasy season. That will.
But yeah, he's great. But yeah, I just think Cook's
What
better.
was Paul's top 3, John?
McCaffrey, Henry, Cook, then Kamara, then Zeke, Saquon, Josh Jacobs, Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones.
I went Aaron Jones at 5, just so you lot couldn't call me some Aaron Jones hater.
I had him at 8th.
I didn't even want to. I just thought I'll put him at 5. Stop any arguments.
Okay. Well, yeah, no, it's I think the top 3, top 4 were always gonna be there, but yeah, it's just.
I'm surprised there wasn't more shout for James Robinson on reflection.
I think I was tempted, but he's only played half a year.
Yeah, we all saw what happened to Connors. He had one good season, and he's nothing now, is he? So
he's had 3 games of less than 50 yards. So yeah.
Miles Sanders, I wondered if people would pick, and I thought I was going to get slated for not having him in the top 10.
No, it's too early to tell on Sanders. Like
I'm amazed.
He's only played like 7 games in total.
Amazed anyone picked Mixon as well.
I'm amazed anyone picked Mixon. He's been terrible.
And
Anyway.
I thought Ronald Jones might have got a shout as well. He's played
No
very
one
well
shouted
this year.
him.
He's had like 3 good games.
He's had 3 games.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and now I want your locks.
God.
For week 11, Paul sent me his.
What's Paul gone for?
He has. Sorry, I've just got a notification I've just clicked on. Accidentally, Paul picked Rams to beat the Bucks.
Ooh.
Big shout, that one.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go Packers to beat the Colts. That is that's at Colts. That's a tough game.
Gary goes hard for once.
I'm going to say Cardinals beat the Seahawks at the Seahawks.
That's what I was going to say, so I'll pick something else.
I'm going to go Bengals over the football team.
I'm going to pick Lions to beat Panthers because there's not much else there.
That was a tough one, John.
I don't know. No one fancies Jets to get a win at last over the hapless Chargers not being able to coach their way up the paperback.
Nah.
Because that's the next one up. The Jets have surely got to win a game eventually. Just on the odds that not that many teams go 0-16. Only 2 in the whole of ever have done that.
They're that bad, though.
Well, you can take it yourself. You've got your own choice.
You go for it. We're not forcing you to take whatever game you took.
Okay, I'll take the Jets finally get a win over the Chargers and can't coach their way out of the paperback. Why not?
It's so easy talking to this shit.
Okay, well, I'll total out up and see what happens next week. But until then, unless there's anything else to add, we'll leave it here and we'll see you next Tuesday. But
bye.
It's a good night from us. See you soon.
Bye.